Guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jaden Irwin, and this is actually part 2 of the Eleventy Crash Course. Sorry if my voice is just a little bit lower or scratchier than usual. I'm actually on the tail end of a little cold. Fought it, and luckily it's not the other thing. But yeah, sorry it's affecting my voice just a little bit. Hopefully you guys can bear with me. But basically, I just wanted to recap real quick what we covered in part 1, which is the pages and the layouts. So you'll see, and source code should be linked below if you want to follow along, or you probably want to watch that first part first. But basically, we've got our page here, our home page. We've got a contact page, and then those are using layouts. So layouts right here. And then in the includes, we have our layouts folder, and we have a base layout and a contact layout. And you'll notice that the contact layout is extending the base layout. And then we have a block of head. If you go into the base layout, you're going to see that there's a block head right there. And basically, it's just extending it. So it's putting it directly into this head block. And that's just a really cool feature of Nunjucks. So we're going to use that a little bit more in a useful way than just this description example that we covered. And the way we're going to show that is through CSS. So you can put your styles on specific layouts, and those styles will only load on those layouts that you set them to. And then we'll also cover a concept of how to do base styles too, because a lot of times your site's going to have base styles or reset styles, which I've already done a little reset.css in here. But I don't want to preview too much. Let's just go ahead and hop into it. So let's go ahead and start with images. So this is a really common concept. You want to be able to load assets or images on your site, right? Kind of keep things more than just text and links. So our assets folder is what I created here. So source, and then I created an assets folder. And then I just have a nice little photo from Unsplash of the stars. I'm going to go ahead and create another folder called images, and I'm going to put it in there. You can call this whatever you want. You could call this base folder images if you want to, but I like having a general assets folder and then images and fonts or videos. Sometimes, a lot of the time websites you have documents too. So you could put that into like a docs folder, put all your documents in there. So I really like that base folder being just called assets. And then we can't really link to it yet. I'll show you. Let's go to our home page here. We'll go to another line, we'll do image, and this is going to be relative, so relative to the base page, right? And we're going to do source equals, assets, images, and then John Fowler, unsplash.jpg, and then we'll close that. And let's always do an alt tag. It's best practice there. So we'll do starry or a photo of these stars. Cool. Probably should be more descriptive in real life there, but at least we've got an alt tag there. So we've got image and then source. And then if we go to we're going to go ahead and start our Eleventy server. So npm start. And under the hood, we'll just recap real quick. That's running npx eleventy -- serve on our start command. You can run it directly if you want. And let's go ahead and open up Chrome here. I've already got our localhost running. And you're going to notice that our image doesn't load. And there's a reason for that. That's because you can't just reference a source file the way that Eleventy builds your site. You actually want it to take this source file and copy it over to our _site folder. This is like the output of Eleventy. You'll notice that we have our index, we've got our contact page, and then we've got our contact index.html. So that's how Eleventy builds pages. Everything by default is going to be to that index.html for each page, which is kind of a best practice there. And then assets, you're going to notice that, and this is kind of left over from me previewing it, but assets isn't going to copy over automatically. So if we go here, we're going to go to our .eleventy.js, and we want to do eleventy config dot add pass through You know, I'm just going to use Copilot because it's already suggesting it. But basically, Eleventy config.add pass-through copy. So this is a function of the Eleventy config parameter that we're passing in. And then we have source assets, right? So basically, it's taking this source assets folder, and everything that's inside of that is getting copied over to the underscore site. And you'll notice it right there. So as soon as I kind of saved that file, Eleventy recognized that change. And then it's like, oh, okay, so you want me to copy source assets to the site. And if we open that up, it's going to have the same. So it's assets, images, and then there's our image. So now if we go back to Chrome, our local host, right? There's our gigantic image. It's probably too big. Let's go ahead and bring that down. We'll go back to our home page. Let's do width equals something like 300 pixels. You'll notice it automatically refreshes too, which is nice. So there are width of 300 pixels. So there's our image, and we should have our alt text on there. We can go ahead and inspect too. There's our alt text. Perfect. So we've got our image working, but maybe we want to style that image. And to do styles, we're actually going to have to set up our styles to copy over as well. So we have our CSS file here. We have reset.css. This is just kind of a little plug here. I like to put in reset styles. It's honestly a best practice, I feel like, to standardize the styles that you're working with across different browsers. And this is one of my favorites, but by all means, there's a lot of options for reset styles. You can create your own too. This one's called a modern CSS reset, and it's from a developer named Andy Bell. I'll link it in the description below, but we're going to go ahead and load in the reset styles. So let's just kind of show how that would work. So let's go ahead and do another CSS file here. We'll call this global.css. We're going to do @import URL and reset.css. So you're going to notice nothing happens. Same thing again. We got to go back to our Eleventy.js. We're going to do, and good old Copilot, saving me some time. Eleventy config, add pass-through copy, source CSS. So anything inside of that CSS folder is going to get copied over. And there we go. We've got our CSS folder there. Let's go ahead and refresh. Oh, and we forgot to link it. So we've got a CSS file, but it's not being used yet. And again, global.css, right, is importing reset.css. And the reason I set it up that way is you could, underneath here, do your global styles, right? A lot of times you're going to have like a default background color or something like that, right? So let's go ahead and use it though. So we're going to go to includes, layouts, and if we open up our base.html, our base.html is actually using that base head that we created in the first part. So let's go ahead and add it to the base head, because global styles are kind of one of those things that just need to be built into the base head, right? So let's do link rel equals style sheet, href equals, and that's going to be /css / global.css. And that should, there we go, there's a refresh. So you notice that the reset sort of does a block type on the image. It does a couple of other things, like you'll notice that we're doing a box sizing, and we won't go too far into that, but just notice that the reset is working. And we can prove that too if we go back to our global CSS. Let's do like background equals on the body tag. Let's do gray. Oh, background color is probably what we want. And let's see why that's not working. Body, our global CSS is loading. Oh, yeah. So this is good that we ran into it. So this is something that you want Eleventy to also do. So we're going to do Eleventy config dot add watch target. So what's happening, because I changed that file, Eleventy didn't really know that it needs to refresh itself or go and copy those files again. because it didn't really know that they changed, if that makes sense. Eleventy is usually just watching what's inside of your index.html, those types of things. It's not really watching your CSS files that it's copying over. So we need to go back in, and we're going to do Eleventy config add watch target. So we're saying, hey, watch this file or any of these files in this folder, and that's what's happening in this case. Watch the CSS files, and you'll notice that we've got our background now, background gray. And we'll prove it real quick. So we'll click on body. There's our body background color gray. So we've got our global styles working. Let's go ahead and delete that. We're going to go back to our good old white background there. And that should get it to refresh. Not sure why the watch target didn't want to refresh there. But yeah, there we go. So we've got our background working. And let's go ahead and let's add another CSS file, but maybe this is a CSS file that we only want to load on the contact page that we created. So if we go to the contact page, maybe we want just this page to have a gray background. Pretty easy to do. We're going to go CSS again, create a new contact.css. You can sort of imagine how this would be useful to have specific pages have specific styles. That way that your home page doesn't get the same styles that your contact has, right? So we're going to do contact.css. Let's do that again. So body, and we'll do background color gray again. And you'll notice nothing happens yet, right? We're going to go to our contact.html layout, right? Under that, we're going to do link rel equals style sheet, href equals /css /contact.css. And there you go. So we've got our background gray. Just on the contact page, if we go back to the home page, you can see right there, our contact page is getting specific styles that it has and the home page does not have, which is really flexible. That's what we want, right? And then we could go even further. We could go and do an index.css, right? And there's a couple of ways that you could format this, but I kind of like the idea of my index page having an index.css, right? And then you could, not put that in the base layout, or we could do another layout. Let's go ahead and do that. And we'll probably call this home.html to avoid some issues there. We probably need to do the same thing here, home.css and home.html. And this is just same thing that we did last time. I'm actually just going to cheat a little bit, copy from the contact, extends the base layout. And this is going to be our home.css that gets loaded on the home page only. So that does mean that our home page, it doesn't need to be using the base layout anymore. It needs to be using home.html, right? Because we now have a home layout that's using home.css. So kind of the reason I'm doing that is maybe we want to target that image, right? We've got an image tag in there. Let's go ahead and do like a little cool border radius equals, yeah, let's try that. And and we created home.css, home.html, CSS, home.css. I'm not sure why it doesn't want to get that pass-through target. All right, so it worked for me there if I killed the server and reran it. So I just did Control-C to kill it, and then npm start again. But that is interesting to me why it doesn't want to refresh. I'm sure it's an issue with my config here. So add watch target. And let's just try that. And let's test it. We'll go back to just doing some live debugging here. It's always good. Let's do like 40 pixels. Okay, so it's refreshing now. Let's do more like 4 pixels. And then we could do like IMG hover. So when you hover over the image, then we'll do border radius 50%. And there's no transition there. Let's just do a little transition, something simple. There we go. Got a little transition on the hover there. Yeah, so that must have just been an issue with the way that I had the source loading there. So it's source/CSS seems to be working great. We could probably even do the trailing slash on there and it'd be fine. But yeah, there we go. We've got CSS loading just on the home page. And we've got our CSS loading just on the contact page, right? And then we've got global CSS. So if we want to do some global styles like typography or something like that, this would be a great place to put that. Maybe we want all of our H1s, this is just for example, to be bright blue. There we go. We've got all of our H1s are bright blue. And we still have that home page CSS loading just on the home page. So yeah, that's really all I have for this part. I know it's not a whole lot. It might be if you're just starting out, but this is really just one of those parts where you want to cover the basics and set up that foundation still. So in the future, we're going to be doing a lot more. We're going to be looking at how to load in some JavaScript functions with Eleventy. They have some cool concepts called shortcodes with Nunjuck, so you can kind of create custom shortcodes, which is really cool. We'll show kind of a component model for that. I think that's going to be our next part, is how to work with components in Eleventy. So stay tuned for that, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I'm happy to help out as best I can, kind of point you in the right direction in between parts if you have questions. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.